Okay, welcome everyone to the Global Tipping Point Summit on building a support system. As mentioned, this is a parent-school partnership. I am Manda, a social emotional counselor at the Gateway School of Mumbai. And this is Anahita.
Hi, I'm Anahita. I'm a parent of a neuro-diverse child at Gateway School.
We just wanted to give a quick disclaimer before we begin. This is our personal experience about building a support system, and it does work differently for everyone. What we do find helps us the most if we keep the child at the center. Please do stay on later because we're going to have a question and answer round. So if you want to ask specific questions about your support system and about how we can navigate through it, please do stay at the end, and then we can take personal questions and answer specifically for each one.
Okay, so let's start. Let's start with diagnosis, developmental pediatrician, and working with the family. For those of you who are parents, and I don't know the audience particularly well, but for those of you who are parents, no words do justice to the gamut of emotions that parents feel when they get a diagnosis for their child. Usually you go to see a specialist because you suspect a problem. Very often it is the mother who has an instinct. All family members may not always be supportive of this. But if you have that instinctive feeling that something is amiss, you must visit a developmental pediatrician. The developmental pediatrician is your first point of contact. It is this person who will give your child a diagnosis, which will be the basis on which all future therapies and decisions will be taken. So it is very important that you start by meeting a developmental pediatrician. Even if you suspect something, most of us believe as parents that with the right help, it will be a solvable problem, which you can overcome. However, when you get a diagnosis for your child that is permanent, it falls on you like a ton of concrete. There is this blinding pain, terror, grief, and you just feel motionless. Your first reaction is of total disbelief. Every individual reacts to this differently, but usually the first reaction is of complete denial. Most parents and close family are in a state of complete denial after the diagnosis, immediately after the diagnosis. Now, however terrifying it may be, step one is to get the diagnosis from a developmental pediatrician and not delay the process. The earlier you begin, the easier it will be. Early intervention is critical. I cannot emphasize that more. Immediately after the diagnosis, most parents may want to isolate themselves from everything and everyone. So you are
Saturday morning.
Pull.
I think you said no.
Yeah. No pull.
I go on. Immediately after the diagnosis, you may want to isolate yourself from everyone or everything. You are so overwhelmed that is compounded with dealing with your spouse, the other child, maybe grandparents, and the diagnosed child. Everything else becomes frivolous in a matter of hours. Your child, other child, household responsibilities, career, your spouse, all seem unimportant suddenly. Every parent has expectations that they take for granted after having a child, and these are suddenly crushed, and a kind of feeling of chronic sadness becomes pervasive. Also, your anxiety levels are incredibly high. You are very fragile. Acceptance at this point is a far-fetched goal. You are constantly told that anxiety is affecting your child, it's affecting the spouse, so please don't be anxious. So even the luxury of grieving is kind of taken away from you as a parent. You can't grieve publicly because you are in no shape to share this information with extended family and friends yet. Grieving privately is also difficult when you have small children and there's a lot of demands on you for time. If at this point it is unbearable, a counselor may help the parents, someone who works closely with these children or is a parent themselves may be the best option. Do not hesitate to take this help if you feel you can't cope with the situation you find yourself in. Now let's talk about working with the family. The family becomes your first ring of support. At this point, the parents and family need more support than the diagnosed child. It is crucial that parents don't start blaming each other or blame each other's families for the diagnosis. I think the parents need individual space to begin with, to deal with it, and need to give a lot of support to each other too. Each parent deals with it in a different way. So while the mother may be devastated and crying all the time, the father may be in a complete state of denial and think that the diagnosis is wrong. But you have to understand that each one grieves differently, and there is no right and wrong, but your spouse needs unstinting support from you, because if your relationship gets fractured, it will be even tougher for the child and you. At this time, the immediate family, that's the grandparents and siblings, if you're close to them, need to rally around and be there to morally support the parents and be a unit to carry the parents through this period. They may not have to agree on everything, but it would be best if they just held the parents together at this point. This is the toughest period, and however unconventional, and I can say that again, however unconventional the person's coping behavior may seem to you, it's best to show empathy and just let the person know that you're with them at that point. The parents need each other's support and don't need to be judged by each other or the family. If this whole period is handled maturely, this will bring them closer and create a stronger bond that most people don't have. Once that is in place, the child will benefit because everyone works together and is on the same page. So it's a very important time. The family is the first ring. If handled maturely, you can really work with this. Now let's talk about the next thing, starting therapy. Starting therapy, it seems very scary, but start it. The minute you get the diagnosis, you are told to start therapy. Most of us in Mumbai who meet developmental pediatricians, they're extremely busy. We have waited 3 to 6 months to get an appointment. The doctors barely have time to give you too much information. So overnight, you just expected to become an expert. And words like OT, speech, special ed, sensory diet, ABA are being flung at you. You're pretty paralyzed with fear and grief at this point. Nothing makes sense at all. And generally for most people who have no contact with a person with neurodiversities, all this jargon seems incredibly unfamiliar. It feels so surreal at that moment because many a times even the best of the best specialists, if you were to consult them, have no explanations and there is no laid down protocol to follow for therapies ahead, like there are for so many other illnesses. And there you are just a young uninitiated parent. You may have never heard the diagnosis till this moment, but because you are the primary caregiver, the burden suddenly falls on you to take these decisions about therapies and what to do next, which have far-reaching effects on the future of the child, as well as these decisions indirectly affect the future of the family in time. So at this point, you feel terribly alone and lost, and I guess we all make mistakes. It's like a trial and error. There is no right formula. Most of us would love to turn back the clock and rethink some of the decisions we made initially. But it's okay to fail. Just like the image in this slide shows us, it's however early intervention at this point is critical and must not be delayed. So we mustn't dilly-dally on that decision at all. The National Institute of Child Health and Human Development says, When intervention is delayed, it takes 4 times as long to intervene in the 4th grade as it does in kindergarten because of brain development and because of the increase in content for students to learn as they grow older. So irrespective of how you feel, even if the world is falling apart around you and your family, um, there may be no acceptance or very little at this stage. Acceptance will come, it comes in waves. You are never going to be fully accepting at this point. So put your grief and your accepting aside in a little box and just start therapy. Everything you are feeling and going through is totally normal and it will become better. Let the professionals do what they know best and don't waste time. It is the best thing you can do at this point for yourself and for your child. Now, if any of you all are volunteers, teachers, therapists, this is the state and point at which most new uninitiated parents walk into your workplace. So please empathize with them and give them more time. They need more help than the child. So give them time and information. Keep aside a little time for their questions because they have no other person to turn to. You are their only source of professional support. When we start therapy as a new parent, it's a steep learning curve for every parent. It is best to get involved at this stage in the therapy. Don't just choose to drop off your child at a therapist, however much you are tempted to do so. Employ a therapist that allows you to sit in the session so you begin to learn and understand the process. Also, at this point of time, you need someone who can empathize and has time for the million queries and problems you are facing. So find someone who has time for your needs. It's okay to pay for 1 hour and ask the therapist to spend 10 minutes just helping you and answering you and answering all your questions. It is not that easy to find this, but with trial and error and some luck, you will find somebody in time. The therapists now become your new support system. They are the only people who know your child quite intimately, and they begin to help you navigate through the initial upheavals that you face as you go along. So it is important that you have a good rapport with them, as it will help you emotionally and mentally to begin to accept the diagnosis and come to terms with this new situation. As you get involved in various therapies and start to understand things better, you meet the right people. You start to form a network of other parents waiting with their children in waiting rooms. You begin to hear and share your stories. And since they are in the same boat as you tend to connect and form a new set of friends. Um, you hear about different therapists, new theories, good and bad experiences, and slowly but surely you form a network of trust and a new support system of therapists and parents of other neurodiverse children who become your second ring of support outside your immediate family. Most people tend to become very reclusive just after the diagnosis and drift away from their original friend circle because those people suddenly seem unrelatable to you. Most mothers of neurotypical kids are talking about their kids going for Vedic maths, maybe chess, Mandarin, ballet classes, talking about elaborate play dates, school admissions, which all seem unreal to you at this point of time. So you tend to change your set of friends. Very often you seek out old friends or someone you may know who is in the field or has children with difficulties, because there is an instant bond, and these are the people who you begin to confide in and feel comfortable to spend time with. They all form the second ring of support for the parents and the child. And we'll take a minute to see this slide. Now you can see the child, the circle of support is growing as you form new relationships, bonds with other therapists, mothers, and teachers. Let's talk about acceptance. Easier said than done. A lot of therapists and teachers have grumbled to me about how parents cannot accept. and are in denial. And I always tell them that until you are in their shoes, you cannot understand how painfully difficult it is for a parent. It's very easy to accept when it's your niece, your grandchild, your student, etc., etc. But if it's your own child, it's very, very painful. And you are filled with guilt and a lot of grief at that point. But to quote Laurie Duchesne, accept that you will never be perfect. Life will always have challenges, and other people will disappoint you sometimes. Acceptance is the first step towards peace and recovery. And I can't emphasize that last line more. I think once you've understood that acceptance will bring you to peace and recovery, acceptance will start happening. So now we have managed to start therapy, but there yet may be a lot of resistance from your family or the spouse. Each person is at a different stage of acceptance. You may have accepted that your child needs help, but you feel it's not permanent. In a short time, the child will become better. So acceptance comes in waves. At every stage, you accept a little more. Then there is something more to accept. You may be yet worried about how society, how it would feel to tell others, the ability to openly share the diagnosis with extended friends and extended family and larger friend circle may all yet feel very daunting. Often the father and mother have different views about how to tackle this. Sometimes even saying the diagnosis aloud seems painful. But give yourself time and give your spouse time. And only when you both feel comfortable about it, begin to share. There is a story that I would like to share from my personal experience that made me rationalize and come to terms with these feelings I was going through about therapy, choosing the right special school, dealing with outsiders, etc. I met my standard 9 teacher in a waiting room with my child. By now, she had become the principal of my other child's school. She instantly kind of recognized how tense and anxious I looked. So she asked me about it. And I was so vulnerable that I just told her that I was having problems and I couldn't come to terms with it with my other child. And she very matter of factly turned around and said that there was nothing to feel so overwhelmed and upset about. It's just like giving a pair of glasses to a child who's having difficulty with sight. Um, in the same way, if your child needs therapy, there is no shame in giving him or her therapy. So she told me, stop feeling bad, just go ahead, do what's best for your child. No one and nothing should stand in your way. Now, this little pep talk got me thinking, and I'm going a little off topic, but I remember being in standard 1, sitting in the back row and not being able to follow a math class because I couldn't see. But at that time, I didn't realize I had poor sight. The teacher took this huge ruler and drew squares on the blackboard and then wrote very simple addition sums. The entire class was squealing and saying how easy it was and squealing out the answers. And I was feeling terrified and foolish because I couldn't understand anything and I felt too embarrassed to ask or tell the teacher that I couldn't understand a thing. So I just drew some crazy squiggles in my book and gave it up. This repeated a couple of times, and then my teacher called me, but I couldn't give her a reasonable explanation to what was going wrong. Later, my mother spoke to me at length, and it was only after several questions that my mother kind of realized that I probably could not see very well. Now, I was a neurotypical child, and I yet had so much problem explaining what had gone wrong. And I felt so challenged and scared and foolish that it took me months to regain my confidence. So I thought, now imagine what my child with so many more difficulties is feeling, and how small and scared must my child feel if I were to not give him adequate support, therapy, and scaffolding. If we were to hypothetically compare a pair of specs to the therapy we parents are so keen to stop or not give our children, think about it. Would it be okay to say maybe we can wait a few months and see if the child really needs it? Maybe if we put him in the front row and don't give specs, it would be okay. Or how will it look? What will people say? What will they think if I give him a pair of specs? Or maybe just give specs for a few months. Then the child will improve and let's stop it. That is how inhuman it would be if we didn't give our children all the support and scaffolding they needed. Put yourself in their place, not for one moment, they don't know what is going wrong. They feel confused and terrified to go to school and incredibly ashamed due to the things they have no control over. Is it fair to deny them the help they so desperately need? Think about it. So now you have come around to start all the therapies that have been recommended for your child. As the therapies and the rest starts getting on, a year or two passed, and most of the time you see little or sometimes not too much improvement, or at least not the amount and the speed at which you would like to see it. The family is crabby, everyone's life has been turned upside down. Most yet believe it is short term and things will go back to being normal somehow. This is when you begin to get frustrated. Therapies seem unconventional to you. You may be thinking, my child can't converse, but this therapist is insisting on putting the child on various swings, blowing bubbles, making me make these weird visual schedules, play, doing shaving foam. There is just no light at the end of the tunnel as far as the parent is concerned. There is a financial angle too. No one has ever made provisions for. So it's very easy to start blaming, to start fighting with the therapist and your spouse who may not be part of the daily therapy. So one thing that I came across that really helped me best realize and rationalize this frustration we all feel when we see no progress or too little and incredibly slow progress is the law of wasted effort. Do you know that lions only succeed in a quarter of their hunting attempts, which means they fail 75% of their attempts and succeed in only 25% of them? Despite this small percentage shared by most predators, they don't despair in their pursuit and hunting attempts. The main reason for this is not because of hunger, as some might think, but it is the understanding of the law of wasted effort that have been instinctively built into animals, a law in which nature is governed. Half of the eggs of fishes are eaten. Half of the baby bears die before puberty. Most of the world's rains fall in oceans, and most of the seeds of trees are eaten by birds. Scientists have found that animals, trees, and other forces of nature are more receptive to the law of wasted efforts. Only humans think that the lack of success in a few attempts is failure. But the truth is that we only fail when we stop trying. Success is not to have a life free of pitfalls and falls, but success is to walk over your mistakes and go beyond every stage where your efforts were wasted, looking forward to the next stage. If there is a word that summarizes this world, it simply will be continue all over again. So the only thing you can do is not stop. Just keep going on. Be proactive and keep at it. Change, re-evaluate therapies as you need to, but keep trying even if you feel nothing will work. From my own experience, I learned if you develop the tenacity to get up each morning and start with the same enthusiasm as the first day, being totally indifferent to the outcome, good or bad, because success is not in your hand. What is in your hand is to keep trying. So, as at many points in my journey, I gained tremendous support from people around me. But I also relied on myself and the learnings that this journey brought about with it. which was almost an evolution for me. And this helped me incredibly to cope and come to terms with my expectations and grief. So my thoughts and beliefs became an invisible support system to myself and my child and my family. Let's talk about making a choice about the school that best fits your child's needs. That's another, you started therapy, now the child has reached an age when you have to decide on a school. Let's go back and remember the story of the specs when making the decision for which school we choose. Irrespective of all the dreams and aspirations parents may have, I went to XYZ school. I always wanted my child to go to this place. What will people say? How can I bear to say my child is going to a special school? Keep the child and their needs in the center of every decision you make. And instead ask yourself, will this be the best school for my child? Does it have a special ed cell? Do they give adequate support? Are they open-minded and supportive to parents' views? Are they open to views of outside therapists? Do they allow shadows? Will it be too challenging for my child? Will my child be happy? Will my child be in a happy environment which develops his confidence and where he feels respected and loved for who he or she is? These are the things that you need to think of when you choose a school for a neurodiverse child. I had to learn to stop judging myself, my children, and my spouse by the way I believed society was judging us. Success is a very subjective word and it changes for each of us as we age. What is success in my eyes is not the same for you. For me, success is not acing exams, sending my kids abroad, and marrying them off to the brightest girl or boy. As parents of children of neurodiversities, we evolve in different ways, and success is very different for us. Accepting that my idea of success was different from the others made me calm, and I then had the ability to make a difference to my child. The anxiety vanished, and with time, things began to fall into place. Through all this, building a bond with your therapist is a very important aspect, and I'll let Manda elaborate on this further.
Sorry, give me 1 second. There's someone trying to enter. Okay. Just dropping your child off is not enough. We have found that we get the best outcome when the parents and therapists work together. Children spend majority of their time with their parents, and therefore parents are the best resource to provide insight into the child's behavior. Therapists can use this information to zoom out and look at the bigger picture and provide support. It has to be a give and a take. It's not just enough to spend time with the child. You have to also spend time with the parent learning about the child. It has to be a collaboration, and feedback needs to be given in a constructive manner. It's not just therapy with the child, but you also have to invest time in teaching the parent how to work with the child so that the parents can help generalize the support structures across all areas. Look at the child holistically and do not address the problems that only occur in your therapy room, but also the bigger context, like in school. Anahita?
The other thing that you need to think about is therapies keep evolving. What was super and worked very well for some time for your child might change as time goes on. So you can't be complacent. You have to keep re-evaluating what you are doing with the child. There is no fixed format for this. As you mature into a mindful parent with experience and understanding of your child that only you will have, you will realize that you have to keep tweaking therapies. Sometimes you have the best therapy slots. You love your therapist and you need the person more than the child, but the child has outgrown that therapy. So you have to keep changing and increasing that ever growing circle of support. If you have good relationships with all your therapists, you will find it easier to reach out, reconnect with them at different points in your journey. And they will help you navigate a lot of challenges your child may face in school and other situations. Because I developed a strong bond with my therapist, years after not working with them, they are still open and receptive to helping me today. To sum up how to navigate through your support system, take one step at a time. First, begin therapy. Understand that acceptance happens in waves and happens at different times for each person. Acceptance is the first step towards recovery and peace. Do not fracture your relationships with your family, as the child needs them as much as you need them, and they are your first ring of support. Do not hesitate to reach out for professional help for yourself and spouse, as they then form the second and one of the strongest forms of support. Do not give up, no matter how slow the progress is, how unconventional the therapy style, or how large the obstacle may seem to you. Build a strong connection with therapists, parents of children with special needs, and do not be afraid to lean on them for support. Lastly, if you have just been able to get up and move on, if you are here, you are doing perfectly well. You are not the only one. It is the first step, and you will eventually empower yourself and your child to be the best he or she can be. And you will be very happy and proud of everything the child can achieve, because only you understand the severity of the challenges the child faces. This newfound acceptance will now begin to allow you and your family to regain their confidence, start sharing and forming a larger support system. It may not be the same as the old one before the diagnosis. There will be some new and some old friends. Automatically, the ones who don't support you will become unimportant and fall off. But many new people will appear out of nowhere and support you and change your child's life, for which you will be eternally grateful. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. We wanted to have a question and answer round. We wanted to specifically answer questions pertaining to your support system and if you needed any help with that. This first session was to show you all the perspective of what it's like to have a support system from the parents' perspective. And the second one will be more of what the school does to build a support system in collaboration with the parent. If you have any questions, if you want to type it in chat, or if you want to unmute yourself and ask, we would love to answer them.
Hello.
Hi,
Yeah.
Rishi.
Can you hear me? Yeah. The first, let me tell you, the session was excellent. She really spoke well. I'm sorry I joined in 15 minutes late, so I'm sure I missed out a lot. Yeah, but coming to the point, I have a neighbor's child who's been diagnosed on autism spectrum. The child is 4 years old. And I myself am a counselor. I have worked with preschool. I was running a school for 18 years and I have that kind of a background. So they know my background and now they are expecting me to, help that child. The child comes to me. Simultaneously, I'm doing homeschooling with my society children. Now the problem is that child is coming together with the other children whom I'm homeschooling, and I'm totally lost as to how to handle this child. I have not done any special education, so yes, I am aware of autism and all, because we used to take moderate or borderline children with autism and all in my school. But here I have I'm feeling so guilty. How do I help that child? I don't have anything with me to do. so that, like sensory play or something. I don't have any equipments because I've given I was in Bombay and I've shifted to Bangalore, so I'm no longer having my school now. So if you could guide me, and the main reason, that what I heard in the session, the mother, she is just not ready to accept. She feels the child will become normal. The grandparents, the maternal grandparents are feeling the child will come around, and they are having twins. So the one child is normal, whom I'm homeschooling, and this child has been diagnosed last June, and it's been almost like it will be a year in June, and she's still not accepted that the child is on autism spectrum. How do I help? The father has accepted, and he keeps telling me, I have joined her in some autism, parent with autistic children group and all. The father is in that group, but the mother is not willing to accept, and the father has clearly told me that don't tell her, she will not join. And we had a PTM with the homeschooling children, and I was talking about the normal child, and she didn't bother to broach the topic. And then I only said that, what about this child? She said, yeah, I know. I just have to get him into the routine. She didn't ask me how he's faring, what he's doing, but I definitely want to help because the father is very friendly with me, and we are having a lot of expectations. The paternal grandmother is having a lot of expectations from me because of my background. And to be frank, I'm totally lost. So I need your help here. First of all, how to make the mother understand. And they had started OT. They have stopped it. Now they are going to speech therapist. I am not finding any progress in the speech of the child. Since they have started speech therapy, there is no progress at all. And the child comes to my place. He's very aggressive. He scratches, he pinches, and it's very difficult for me to homeschool the other kids with this autistic child. So can you please guide me?
Anahita, would you like to say something?
Um, Rashida, is that?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
hi Rashida.
Hi.
I think acceptance, as I said, is it comes in waves. It's different for everybody. While the father is accepted and he's accepted a little, the mother is taking her time, and you can't do anything about it. What you have to do is start therapy and not expect any change right now.
Hmm.
You have to explain to the parents, and you have to understand also that no magic can come about. It's not going to be 3 months and 6 months and 5 months, or it's not going to be 2 years and 5 years also. This is a lifelong thing that the parents will eventually come to terms with. You have to just counsel them through it. I think the best thing to do is, I don't know about the support, probably Varsha or other counselors would know what is the best support system in Bangalore available. I mean, as far as therapists are concerned, we could put you on to the right thing, but they have to start therapy and allow the mother and the father to take their time, grandmother, grandfather, everybody to take their time to accept it in their own way in time. There is nothing you and I can do to push them. Probably a recording of this has been taken. I wish you can give it to the mother or the father if they want to listen to it, because
Yeah,
they have to be
that's
ready to accept. It's a very
yeah.
difficult situation to be in. When she is ready to accept, she will accept, but when that is, I cannot tell you. But once that happens, everything will start falling into place,
Yeah,
because
that's what
whoever the
actually
client.
I was sorry, I'm disturbing you, but that's what I was looking at. That if you could give me this recording, because I found it excellent, superbly excellent. And I was relating to the mother and of course to myself, as how could I help her? I wouldn't call myself a therapist, but yeah, definitely want to help the child. So if you could give me this recording, I could pass it on to the father, and maybe they could sit together and listen. And if we can bring in some change, I mean, it's always good on a humanitarian ground. So yeah, that would be really helpful if you could give me the recording.
Sure, sure.
We will
Yeah,
be
yeah.
sharing the
Please go
recording.
ahead. Yeah, yeah. Please go ahead. I'm sorry, I stopped you. Can please go ahead.
No problem, Rashida. Aarti also suggests that have one child for homeschooling rather than having them as a group. So Aarti, would you like to elaborate further?
Yes, I thought so, because a child should have a one-to-one interaction rather than being making him in a group, because many a times autism child may lose the control or get aggression to see the other kids. They don't like that when we give attention to other kids at the same time. So specifically he needs attention more rather than giving them rather than giving in a group. So I will just suggest maybe that will be a difference, maybe the change will come.
Okay, point noted.
Thank you, Aarti. Is there anybody else that has any questions? Okay, so since I haven't seen anything in the chat, we also wanted to ask everyone if they would prefer if the next session was pre-recorded and shared with all of y'all, and then we can maybe have a small session where we can all meet up and talk about any questions that we have. If you would like or prefer this, could you please respond in the chat? I can see some people are saying yes in the chat. Please do let us know what you prefer. Rashida, I see you've raised your hand. Thank you everyone for coming in. I know it's a Saturday morning and I know that it's incredibly difficult to get up and come for a webinar, especially with Zoom fatigue. So we really do appreciate everybody who joined the call. And we do hope that you did learn something from this webinar. We will be sharing the recording via email. So please do look out for it in your inboxes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful session. I actually not well, but I can't miss GTPS any of the session of the webinars. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. It was really helpful, and hopefully if I can make some difference to the neighbor's child, so the credit will also go to you. Thank you so much.
I think we can leave.
Gateway team, if you could stay back, that would be great. Everybody else, thank you for coming.
Thank you.